Oh man, I can't wait to dig into that. That's some vegetable beef stew. Hey, this is a real simple dish to make. It's a traditional dish, and it is just packed with flavor and overwhelmingly loaded with vitamins and minerals. It's as healthy as it gets, and it's super food for people that need power. This is something to cook in the winter. It's also good as a fall and a springtime item. So give this dish a shot. You're going to love it, and you can change it up to be anything you want later on down the road. Hello, welcome back to Texas Cooking. Today we're going to be preparing vegetable beef stew. This is a real simple dish to make. It is a staple throughout the United States. And I have had several people ask me my recipe for this, and that's when it dawned on me that even though this is a staple and that a lot of us grew up with it, a lot of people right now just don't know how to make it. And they say it doesn't taste quite like Mom's. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips that are going to make it taste more like Mom's, okay? Now, this one's going to be simple. We've got our beef, carrots, onions, potatoes, and back here are some diced tomatoes. The diced tomatoes are real important. This is absolutely essential. This dish must have these. This provides acid and flavor that brings out flavor in the other ingredients of this dish. Now, also when it comes to the meat, not any meat is going to be sufficient. You need to use a meat that is fatty enough. I wouldn't recommend using anything like, let's say, I wouldn't use like sirloin or anything like that that's going to be too lean. This is a chuck, and I'm using choice beef here, so there's some good fat content, some good marbling that runs through the middle of the red portions of beef here. Most of this fat I'm going to cut out because I want this dish to be as lean as possible. Even though I'm using a fatty meat, that kind of sounds funny. But this stuff is going to come out real tender, where if you use something like sirloin, it'll be real tough when it's finished. So let's get right into this. I'll show you how it's made. Okay, we're ready to cut up our meat for this stew. Now, first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and glove up. And this is because I want to switch from one task to the next quickly. And I'm going to switch cutting boards also when I'm finished cutting this meat. Now, as far as proportions, how much meat to potato to carrot and all that. Okay, I have 2-pound roast here of chuck. I am going to be using 2 pounds of potatoes, approximately 1 pound of carrots, approximately 1 pound or a little bit more of onion, and about 2 pounds or 28 fluid ounces, excuse me, of the diced tomatoes. So there's how it works out. And if you're wondering how to weigh all this stuff, you might want to consider purchasing something simple like a real inexpensive postal scale. These things work really good. They're absolutely perfect for cooking in the kitchen. And any British recipe you ever get is going to be done by weight rather than fluid measurements. Most of them are. So if you want to do some recipes from overseas, then you need to have extra stuff like that. Okay? Nice to have around anyway. Now, if you notice, the first thing I do is go right at this, and I'm attacking every seam of fat. I'm pulling those lumps of meat away from one another so that I can get in there and remove that fat a lot easier. You know, see how I'm using a smaller knife and not a large chef's knife? It allows me to do stuff just like that, to get right up under that fat and then cut it off. See there? Isn't that nice? You make small cuts like that, or you can make big strokes like I was doing just a moment ago. But sometimes when you're working your way through it, it's smart to just do the slow, small movements. Okay, there we go. You work your way through it. There. And if you think that's a lot of extra work, well, to get a good quality product, you're just going to have to sometimes do a little extra work, okay? Now, this one's a real-time video, so you're going to be able to cook right along with me here. And if I do get ahead of you, just stop the video, catch up, and restart it. Look at that. Beautiful. Now this has a little membrane on it. We call that a silver skin. Slip your knife right up underneath it, angle it up slightly, and you can cut that guy right off of there. Sometimes it'll pull off, but you can't always guarantee that, and a lot of times it pulls the meat apart, so I just go at it with a knife just like so. Same thing on the other side. See there? Now, let me turn that around. There we go. Now what fat is left in this marbling, I want to keep. I just want to remove that surface fat and the large amounts and any of that connective tissue like I'm doing right there. Alright, that's looking really nice. So put the knife under this piece, carve around that. Off. There we go. See how easy those trimmings are? Once you really watch it being done and see it up close like that, it's a little less intimidating. Now, I make it look easy, but I've been doing it a long time, okay? Pretty soon you're going to be doing it just as quick. Alright, now if you notice this one's all very thick, and I'm going to want to make this a lot thinner to make smaller bites. I don't want too large chunky bites in my soup. So, now, either way you want to look at this, whether it be a stew or a soup, stewing is just slow cooking, okay, in a pot with liquid. So this is essentially a stew, but it comes out with a more soup-like texture actually than most stews, which I associate as something that's gravy-like. Okay. Now, you notice I split that in half, and then we make this little cross cuts, just like so. Now, in a moment, I'm going to switch to a little larger knife. It's going to make doing this work a lot easier. But the small pieces like that one can be handled with a small knife easily. Make sure your knives are good and sharp. The pot I'm cooking this in is an 8-quart pot. It's a stock pot is what they call that. It can handle a large volume. So you want to use something like that when you're making a stew like this, especially a large quantity. Now if you don't want this much stew, cut all of those proportions in half, and then you won't have any problems fitting it into a much smaller pot. Okay? And we want small bites on that meat. One thing's for sure, I always like to dig into a pot of stew that's got a lot of meat in it. Nothing like it. You see how I turn these strips into a little smaller, narrower strips? And I'm looking for about 3/4 of an inch square. Roughly that. Watch your fingers when you're doing this type of slicing. Okay. we go. Cross cut. Cross cut. Remove some of that. Got some heavier fat in there. Sometimes little pieces like this, you just gotta kind of work them down. Remove some of that. Now, once I get my meat into this pot, I'm going to go ahead and put it onto the stove directly and get that started to cook while I start to process my vegetables. So this is something where you're cooking as you're cutting. And that's one of the things that makes this kind of a nice, quick, and easy meal to do. Even though it looks like I've done a lot of slicing, I've done enough slicing for 8 people to have a meal. Okay? Alright, now the meat is going to go onto a high flame. I'm going to put just a little bit of olive oil in there, about 2 to 3 tablespoons. There it is. I've just now put that on the stove, flame on high, and I'm going to pour in a bit of extra virgin olive oil. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is reduce this flame a little bit as soon as this starts coming up and frying that meat a bit. And we're going to let that meat cook for just a little bit. I want it to cook all the way through, and this is going to provide some browning and add flavor to this whole dish. Now it's time to work our vegetables. That we have the meat on the heat right now. I'm going to take my potatoes and I want to peel that skin off. Now you do not have to do this. You can slice the potato with the skin on there, and yes, you will have more nutrients in your dish when you do that. For this dish though, I wanted a very clean look. Sometimes on a potato you'll get a spot like this. Just work your way down through it. Okay? Now, these nice little potato or vegetable peelers, they're really quick if you learn to use them right. Okay? There we go. Give that a quick rinse. Go. We have that potato just about ready. Now I'm going to get this a little more. See how convenient and quick that is? This sauce spot. Down through that. Now what I try to do is an equal amount of potato to meat. And it gives me real good results. Sometimes if you have a spot that looks like it's pretty deep and it's kind of an eyesore, don't be afraid to just go ahead and take a knife and remove that. After all, you're cutting these things down into dice, so that little bit of loss doesn't mean anything, and it really isn't loss, it's just removing an undesired portion. There we go. Now that I have those done, I also want to do my carrots the exact same way. I just take that and rotate it as I whittle away. Flip it over, do the same thing. You do not have to do this again. I do it because I think it produces a really nice product in the soup, where sometimes this outer skin on the carrot can give you some problems with being a little bit tough or having an odd texture to it. This is not something that takes that long to do. Alright, we have that finished. We're ready to move on to slicing and cubing up our vegetables. Now I'm going to take the ends of these carrots, they're a bit unsightly, and just remove those. Okay, I already did that one earlier. Also, when a carrot has a split in it, I usually like to cut that split out of it. It just gives me an odd feeling. I think that sometimes it might harbor bacteria, so just to be on the safe side, I remove it. Now, I'm going to need a bowl to put these in. I'm going to reduce how many I'm cutting. Make this a little easier for myself. See how I curl my fingers under? Keep it away from that blade. You want all of your carrot cuts to be about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch thick. Any thicker than that, they're going to get really difficult to chew, okay? Now, on the smaller ends here, you can make those just a little bit longer. Okay? Like so. There we go. Sometimes we have a little mistake. We don't worry about that. Just move on. There we are. It's a space concern. Okay. We have all of those. Ready to work on the potatoes. Let's just start by halving the potato, and then let's half those halves, like so. And then I'm going to cut some nice cross cuts. And what that gives me, so you'll know, it's a nice little piece like this. If that's too large, go a little smaller, okay? Let me show you a little different way to do it. So I saw that potato up on its edge there, you see? So I get a little flatter edge and cut these a little more broad. And it gives me a piece like so. Alright, those potatoes cut, the carrots are cut. I need to stir my meat real quick. So I'm going to take just a moment and do that. Meat still has a little bit of red on it, but we have good browning. Almost there. Our onions. Let's take the onions and cut those ends off. Just like so. Gently run the knife around, just so we can remove that outer layer, okay? Sometimes it's thin, sometimes it cooks down bad, so I just get it out of my way. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's sort of thin and papery in spots. And had I tried to cook that, it would have been very unpleasant and mealy for anybody that tried to chew it. So just go ahead and pull that outer layer off. Though it seems wasteful, you're getting a better product. There we go. And I'm just tossing the rest of that aside and getting it out of my way. Now, as far as cutting the onions down, all I want to do is to either half or quarter these and then cross cut them. So I can take it, stand it on end, cut it in half. If I want to quarter them, cut it in half again like so, and then turn these sideways and run myself about 3/8 inch thick slices, okay? Now, so you will know, sometimes the knife will have a tendency to slip off of an onion when it comes down the back side. So if you want, when you hit middle, turn that onion around, just like so, and continue cutting. Alright? That'll keep your fingers a little more safe. Now, the onion I want to put in a separate bowl, because that one's just a bit full. Now, here's a helpful tip for you. Sometimes onions are going to make you cry, or they'll make your eyes water. It's the best way to say it. If that's happening to you, put on a pair of safety glasses, or just regular glasses, or some goggles. What's happening is there's a sulfuric fume that is being released from the onion, and that's reacting with your mucous membranes, and it's making your eyes water. It can make your nose run too. See, it's getting to me just a little bit. And don't worry about how much onion, because that stuff does cook down a lot. See how much smaller that onion is? Here we go. There we are. Now I'm ready to add my vegetables and the tomatoes, which is a fruit, to the beef, and we're off and cooking. I have some good browning on that beef. Look at that, isn't that pretty? Now I can just start adding in the other ingredients. There's our tomato. There's the carrot and potato and the onion. Now at this point, if you want to spice this up by adding some wine, go ahead and put some wine in there. I'm not going to do it on this one. I'm just going to keep this really raw and earthy. The only other thing I'm going to put in this is salt and pepper. lamb, and a bit of water. So, water's next. I'm going to use that same pitcher that I had my tomatoes in. That way I can just wash out the residue there. And we're going to start with 1 quart, which will not be enough. I want enough water to cover that. Go. Back to a high flame. Okay. There we have it. That was a total of 8 quarts of water. Excuse me, 2 quarts of water in our 8-quart pan. If you'll notice, that's brought it up to about 2/3, maybe almost 3/4 of a pan full. From here, we just have to let this come to a boil, cook down a bit, and we're going to have a fabulous vegetable beef stew. Okay? Our soup has come up to a boil now. It's time to put some seasoning in here, and then I'm going to lower the flame and cover it and simmer it for a while. So I'm going to start by salting this, and I want to put in about a couple of teaspoons of salt to begin with, and about a teaspoon of black pepper. If you're wondering how I know it's a teaspoon, I look into this when I start to get an idea of how much I have and just start grinding. Depending on the grinder you get, some of these take a little longer than others. This one's designed to kick out a lot of pepper really fast. Okay. Stir that a little. All I have to do now, if this has come to a boil, is cover. I'll reduce my heat. And now it's time to give this some time to just sit there and simmer. While it is simmering, just go relax. This is your personal time. This is a good weekday dish, and this is what I'm doing right now, is a weekday dish, something easy to make, something fast, and something that'll give me some leftovers on other days when I just don't want to cook. So, here we go. Now you want to give it about 45 minutes and stir it in between, at about every 15 to 20 minute interval. Just check it. And keep simmering until the potatoes and the carrots are tender. Alright, we have come to the end of our cooking now. Our stock is bubbling beautifully there, as you can see. And I have just added a couple of cups of water to this, and I brought it back to temperature. And what I want to do now is just to make sure that this is done. Of course, you can just bite into a few pieces of this if you'd like, and find out real quick if it's done. Or you can do a fork test, where if it goes into that potato easily and the potato breaks apart easily, well, right there, that tells you that that is done. Okay, the onions have wilted, they're soft. So we have a good vegetable beef stew here. This is ready to go in the bowl and to be enjoyed. I hope yours comes out as well. This is a simple dish. Feel free to add any vegetable you want to this, to add all kinds of other stuff to it. This is the kind of dish that you can just mold and change and work with. But one thing is a fact, and something you need to remember, when it comes to the tomatoes in that, if you take those out, replace them. Put some other form of acid in there, because it's the acid which brings out so much flavor in the rest of this dish. So if you take out the acid, it's going to be bland and kind of boring. Okay. Next, we're going to see it in the bowl. Oh man, I can't wait to dig into that. That's some vegetable beef stew. Hey, this is a real simple dish to make. It's a traditional dish, and it is just packed with flavor and overwhelmingly loaded with vitamins and minerals. It's as healthy as it gets, and it's super food for people that need power. This is something to cook in the winter. It's also good as a fall and a springtime item. So give this dish a shot. You're going to love it, and you can change it up to be anything you want later on down the road.